the mystery surrounding the death of respected Hawks detective Lieutenant Colonel Frans Mathipa deepens. In fact, he was killed in an apparent ambush at the Hammanskraal exit after what would have been a meeting, some believe, with suspects in a matter that he was investigating. Now, reports suggest that he was probing, among his other matters, the kidnapping of Abdella Abadiga, a man believed to have affiliations or links with the terrorist group ISIS. Now, he was kidnapped at the Mall of Africa in December last year. And let's now speak to Hennie van Vuuren, Open Secrets Director, who's written about this as well. Hennie, thank you so much for your time. I mean, when one thinks about, Mathipa's death and you're reading what is coming out of it, it is absolutely scary and shocking. It reads like something that, is coming straight out of a movie, though.
Yes, good evening. Absolutely. And I think a tale of a brave South African police officer working within the Hawks crimes against the state unit, and who was given a really hard, tough investigation the last couple of months to try and figure out who abducted Mr. Abadiga and his bodyguard on the 29th of December at the end of last year from the Mall of Africa. They've disappeared, and the prime suspects in the abduction has been stated in court papers, and evidence suggests was in fact a special forces unit, so highly trained operatives who are trained, in fact, to undertake complex operations, often outside of South Africa, and are implicated directly in the abduction of those two individuals. And that's the trail that Frans Mathipa was on. He was, in fact, booked out on the evening that he was murdered yesterday, a week ago, at 8 p.m. to go and investigate that matter. And from what we've learned also in the media yesterday, in fact, he had told his colleagues that he had to go and meet with a group of guys linked to this investigation. And from what we at Open Secrets have been able to piece together from the investigation itself, the shooter may have been driving a luxury German vehicle, and obviously a trained shooter. It wasn't a hail of bullets. It was one or two bullets that were used to assassinate Frans Mathipa in a job that is not only something that someone skilled would have carried out as a marksman, but certainly something that potentially points right back to the SANDF Special Forces Unit, who are implicated in this illegal or illicit abduction.
And I'm going to talk about, that particular alleged link in just a moment. But, just when you read about this and you look at, as you say, the high caliber kind of weapon that is said to have been used here, and when exactly he was shot, as he was trying to then make a U-turn heading back home, as he had said that he doesn't believe, that he should continue further to go to the next location that this apparent individual that he was said to be meeting with wanted him to go to. But let's talk about that, because one of the things that when you read this, it looks like he walked into an ambush and he thought he was actually going to meet with someone who was probably going to give him more information.
Yeah, that's right. I think just maybe just as some of the background information, part of Lieutenant Colonel Mathipa's work had been not only to try and speak to informants. He'd in fact applied to court for a process around a subpoena that he could start collecting cell phone evidence of the members of the special forces who were in the mall that day that Mr. Abadiga and his bodyguard were abducted, and that information would, of course, potentially have identified the individuals that were involved. And certainly he was asking for both identities and the cell phone records of the members of the special forces and the movements of their vehicles that could be detected by cameras on the highways at that time. That would again give an indication of whether or not these individuals were abducted, and if so, where they were taken at the time. So he was doing hard police work, and it would all ultimately had the risk of, I guess, opening up that can of worms of properly exposing the criminal nature of the individuals who were involved in that abduction. And as you say, in a way, he was hunted down. He was lured to a target point. He was followed by, as I've pointed out, this luxury German vehicle, from what we understand, and he was assassinated. And I think it brings great shame on us as a society that a brave individual like this is murdered for doing their job in the public service, and that those fingers could potentially point back to other members of our security services.
Hennie, I'm gonna, one of the things that one wonders though is that in your investigations, was this the only case that he was working on?
I'm not aware of other cases that he was working on, but as we know, the Hawks officials have an extraordinary backlog that they're working with, and they're dealing with many other cases. I guess, Bongiwe, the one important point again, just to remind ourselves, is that evening when Colonel Mathipa went to investigate these matters, he was booked out to actually go and investigate the Lady R not the Lady R matter, rather the abduction. So he certainly was investigating the activities of the special forces. The Friday before this happened, it was reported in City Press yesterday, he had met with the military officials and he'd met with state security officials, and he had put an ultimatum to them to say that I will investigate you and I will get to the bottom of this. And the military said there's nothing to look at here, we weren't part of that. And so he had put them on terms 3 days before his assassination. I think there's sufficient circumstantial evidence to suggest that there's a great likelihood. Again, we cannot say that conclusively at this point, that it is linked to this, and that's on this investigation who's involved in, and that's precisely why one would require the Hawks to throw all their resources behind it, the police, the Minister of Police, and the South African government, to ensure that there's a thorough investigation and we find out who murdered Frans Mathipa and who they may wish to take out next.
And, Hennie, one of the things that this particular matter also, invokes, and as I was reading in the City Press, when they talk about how he said to his wife, please lock the doors, lock the gates, because the people that I'm dealing with are very dangerous. But, you think about whistleblowers in South Africa and the spotlight on their safety. But now, if an investigator's, safety is also, compromised, and you think about then the many others who are doing such work, and I wonder, what does this then do to them?
No, I think absolutely the intention of people to murder somebody like Lieutenant Colonel Mathipa is to send a chilling effect, to warn others. The brazen way they did that, I think, was very clearly to say to anybody, if you look into this matter, we will find you and we will take you out. And I think that's part of the real danger of what's happened here, is precisely that chilling effect and the intention of the killers to send that message. We as a society, and we require our state to step in and to ensure that good public officials who want to act in the interests of the law, and those include good police officers, good prosecutors, and people right across the state, deserve the adequate protection. They really do stand between us and those who wish to undermine our constitutional order and the very rights that are enshrined in our constitution.
And we'll definitely reach out, to some of those who are also, spoken about, and alleged links are being made against them in this particular report. But Hennie, let me thank you for your time. A very disturbing and scary, as well as a very worrying story there of the murder of Lieutenant Colonel Frans Mathipa. And that was Hennie van Vuuren, Open Secrets Director. Now, the Hawks spokesperson has, of course, more on the killing of Colonel Frans Mathipa.
The Hawks National Head, Lieutenant General Godfrey Lebuya, has directed a multidisciplinary team to investigate the murder of Lieutenant Colonel Frans Mathipa, who was murdered on the night of the 6th August 2023. Colonel Mathipa, who was attached to the Serious Organized Crime Investigation, Crimes Against the State Unit, was following up on a possible information on the case that he was investigating when he was fatally shot whilst the vehicle was in motion driving to a destination that was allocated by the alleged informer. Investigation still continues and all potential leads are being followed.